Karen hasn't been HOA president for 3 years, but people still lower their voices when they say her name. New families move in, excited, fresh paint, landscaping plans, backyard dreams. And then someone whispers, "Be careful. Karen used to run this place." Used to. That's the word everyone clings to, but the fear never left. When we moved in, we thought the rumors were exaggerated. Every neighborhood has stories. Every HOA has that one strict president. We were wrong. Karen didn't just enforce rules, she weaponized them. She rewrote guidelines quietly, added clarifications, introduced vague phrases like visual inconsistency and community aesthetic deviation. Translation: if she didn't like you, she could fine you. She claimed she was protecting property values, but somehow the fines always targeted the same homes: single parents, retirees, families who asked questions. She'd walk the streets with a tablet, stop, zoom in, take photos at night. Neighbors started checking blinds before bed, not for privacy, but because Karen had once fined someone for visible interior clutter. People began parking inside their garages even during the day. Trash bins disappeared within minutes of pickup. The community Facebook group stopped allowing comments. Why? Because Karen had threatened defamation lawsuits. By the time she stepped down, half the neighborhood had paid thousands in violations. When Karen finally stepped down, there was no celebration, no apology, no audit, just a short email. Effective immediately, I am resigning as HOA president. That was it. No explanation, no accountability, but the damage she left behind, that was permanent. Within months, for sale signs started appearing. One family had drained their college savings fighting repeated fines over roof discoloration. Another elderly couple refinanced their home to pay accumulated late fees. A single mother quietly moved out after her wages were garnished over unpaid violation penalties. None of these stories were public because no one wanted to admit how powerless they felt. Karen had normalized fear. Even after she left, residents still trimmed their hedges twice a week, still avoided decorating for holidays, still triple-checked trash day schedules. It became habit. The new HOA board promised transparency. They lowered fees, removed vague rules, opened meetings to residents. But something strange happened. Attendance was low. People didn't trust the system anymore. They'd seen how easily it could be weaponized. And then the lawsuits began. Former residents filed complaints with the state, allegations of selective enforcement, unauthorized amendments, improper liens. The investigation revealed something disturbing. Karen had been issuing fines without full board approval. She'd bypassed voting procedures. In some cases, she'd personally authorized escalations. The community wasn't just traumatized, it had been financially exploited. Property values didn't rise during her reign. They dipped because word spread. Realtors began warning potential buyers, this HOA has history. And the worst part? Karen still lived there. She wasn't president anymore, but she hadn't moved. Every time someone saw her walking her dog, the silence returned. The fear that never left you would think once someone loses power, they lose influence. Not Karen. She no longer held the title, but she still held the narrative. At community events, she whispered to neighbors, they just don't respect words anymore. She volunteered for neighborhood beautification committees. She befriended new residents before anyone else could. And slowly, she rebuilt influence, not officially, socially. The new HOA board tried to move forward, but every decision was questioned. Anonymous complaints resurfaced. Violation reports began appearing again, this time submitted by concerned residents. No signature, no name, but the language, identical to Karen's old notices. Precise, cold, obsessively detailed. Blinds uneven by visible margin. Trash receptacle exposed at 8:12 a.m. Driveway discoloration. It was like she never left. One evening, I found a printed violation taped to our mailbox. Not official, no HOA letterhead, just typed. The same tone, the same wording. That's when I realized something disturbing. Power had changed her, but losing it hadn't fixed her. It had redirected her. Neighbors started talking quietly again, not about rules, about her. How she knocked on doors asking invasive questions, how she photographed houses for her records, how she sat at board meetings in the back row staring. She wasn't president anymore, but she was still watching. And fear? Fear doesn't disappear overnight. It lingers in the way people lower their voices, in the way they hesitate before decorating, in the way they second-guess normal life. One family tried to formally confront her about harassment. She responded calmly, I'm just protecting property values. Always that phrase. Property values, as if humanity was secondary. As if peace didn't matter, the HOA had new leadership, new rules, new transparency. But Karen became a shadow, and shadows are harder to fight. The turning point didn't come from the HOA, it came from a new neighbor, a retired journalist. She had moved in quietly, listened carefully, and noticed something the rest of us were too exhausted to see: patterns. Every anonymous complaint matched Karen's old enforcement language, down to punctuation. Timestamps on resident reports aligned perfectly with her daily walks. Photos submitted to the HOA board contained metadata, location tags, device signatures, all pointing to the same source, Karen. But this time, she wasn't protected by a title. She was just a resident. The new board, determined not to repeat old mistakes, hired legal counsel and a digital forensic analyst. They documented everything: harassment, stalking behavior, unauthorized surveillance, false reporting. When she was formally confronted, she denied it, until the evidence was projected on a screen at the next community meeting. Silence filled the room, not fearful silence. Final silence. A restraining order followed. Community-wide policy changes were implemented. No anonymous enforcement submissions without verification, no resident surveillance allowed, strict anti-harassment clauses added to bylaws. For the first time in years, the neighborhood felt lighter. Kids played outside without parents glancing over their shoulders. Decorations stayed up without anxiety. Laughter returned. Karen still lives in the neighborhood, but now, when she walks past houses, people don't lower their blinds. They wave politely because fear lost its grip. She isn't a shadow anymore, just a reminder that unchecked power can haunt a community, but collective action can end it. If you've ever dealt with someone who abused authority in your neighborhood, share your experience in the comments below. And if you want more real HOA stories like this, make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Because sometimes the only way to stop abuse is to shine a light on it. And once the light is on, shadows disappear.